Welcome back. The time is 8 minutes till the top of the hour, and you're still tuned in to Salam Media with myself, Salailo Makwidiri. This is News and Views, and we'll be wrapping up the show with a very crucial topic, which is at the intersection of energy policy and local governance. President Cyril Ramaphosa recently underscored the pivotal role municipalities will play in South Africa's transition to a low-carbon economy. In his keynote address at the Just Energy Transition Municipal Conference, he emphasized that municipalities are not only central for the decarbonization efforts, but also hold the key to ensuring that this transition is both equitable and sustainable. And to help us navigate this complex issue, we have the pleasure of speaking with Mohamed, Mahdi, an energy specialist and CEO of Sinan Energy. Mohamed will be sharing with us valuable insights into how municipalities can effectively lead the energy transition and also the broader implications for South Africa's energy landscape. Mohamed, thank you so much for joining us. Assalamu alaikum. Always a pleasure chatting to you.
Wa alaikum salam, and thank you. Morning to the viewers.
I think first and foremost, if you can just give us an overview and your thoughts on energy transition, moving away from carbon, essentially decarbonizing South Africa, moving away from coal, which we're very, very reliant on, and looking into the future, green energy, which seems to be the new trendy word that has taken South Africa by storm.
With pleasure. So I think the important thing to understand is that the notion of an energy transition itself has changed over the last several years. And one of the reasons for that is that, there have been new technologies that have now begun maturing and that are capable of providing baseload power very, very quickly. So 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, we were thinking that gas would be primarily the fuel for the energy transition and would last for a period, a certain number of years, and then we would have slowly renewables coming on stream. But two things have changed since then. The one is the acceptance and the adoption of renewable energy has been a lot higher, a lot quicker, a lot faster than anyone anticipated. Even if you look at the International Energy Agency, and if you look at their forecasts for how renewable energy was going to be adopted, they had underestimated how quickly renewable energy was going to be adopted worldwide, not just in South Africa. The second major thing that's occurred in terms of technology maturity over the last decade has been the leaps and bounds made in progress with regard to hydrogen and hydrogen as a fuel source. Now, hydrogen still has some issues. It still is pretty costly, but already the prices have dropped more than what we anticipated 5 years ago, for example. The other interesting thing about hydrogen is a large amount of research dollars have gone into improving the hydrogen value chain. So we have many more companies than anyone could have anticipated building different parts of the the value chain, equipment for different parts of the value chain. We have electrolyzers, we have hydrogen flow cells, etc. So these two things have brought about a change in the thinking around what the energy transition should be like. And what is clear are the following sort of key points then. Renewable energy is going to be very, very quickly the mainstay of the new energy landscape. Secondly, we're going to have decentralization. So you won't have this major utility grids the way we currently understand them, because people are going to find it affordable and viable to build their own power plants, especially businesses, large users will build their own power plants and will be able to do so economically and generate power cheaper than the grid, in this case Eskom. But not only in this country, this is a worldwide trend. And then thirdly, in my opinion, about 3 to 5 years from now, we will find hydrogen being viable as an energy source and viable, economically viable. This is what we mean. So it will be cheaper than the grid in all likelihood between 3 and 5 years from now. And this is where I see the path for energy transition needs to be mapped going forward. We certainly should not be looking at nuclear and especially small scale nuclear. There's just no benefit in any small scale nuclear. And coal needs to be very rapidly, downscaled as we go ahead. But we're not going to, just the last point on this, we shouldn't be forcibly stopping the coal. It will die a natural death as renewable energies grow, as hydrogen comes onto the scene, as people start building power plants on site. You'll find less and less need for coal. So that's more or less, how I anticipate the energy transition to work going forward.
I want to touch on your last point, the one that you made about coal and us not phasing it out forcefully and in a hurry. South Africa is heavily reliant on coal. We don't just use it here for our own power producing as means of power producing, but we're also exporting it worldwide. But just looking at us specifically, our energy needs, where we are economically as a country, are we at a position where we can be anywhere near, even starting to wean ourselves off of coal as an energy means of production?
So that's a great question. And I think the numbers and the statistics answer that question the best. If you look at over the last 2.5 years, the private sector has put in over 4,000 megawatts of power, close to 4,000 megawatts of power. And that power was not just solar and not just wind, but it was also battery energy storage. And because of that battery energy storage component, what has happened is Eskom's peak loads have dropped. And this is one of the reasons that they were able to forestall any load shedding over the last 153 days. Of course, they've also improved their fleet and they've made certain very good internal changes, which has brought about reduction in load shedding. However, the role of the private sector in implementing solar and wind and battery energy storage has played a big part in this whole load shedding reduction process as well. So that shows that we've already started the reduction in dependence on coal, and that trend is going to continue, and very importantly, it's going to accelerate because battery energy storage, for example, has now dropped in price. Compared to 5 years ago, it's dropped by about 30 to 40%. And just in the last year, going forward into the next year, we anticipate it will drop a further 10%. 5 years from now, battery energy storage will be normal. It will be the mainstream, and every user who's a decent user of power, whether it's a business, a manufacturing company, a mine, whatever the case may be, they will have some form of battery energy storage to stabilize their load, to better utilize the renewable energy that they have, and also to be able to reduce their peak demand from the grid.
Mm, mm. I want to focus a bit on what President Cyril Ramaphosa outlined in that presidential inaugural Just Energy conference, where he said municipalities are and should be in the driving seat to decarbonize South Africa. I just had an interview right now with Julius Kleinhans from Outer, and we're just talking about that poor showing from the Auditor General, the fact that only 34 out of more than 200 municipalities were able to have a clean audit, which is something that one might consider very, very minuscule. It's supposed to be standard protocol. Are our municipalities equipped to start that transition? Do they know and understand where to begin and where to end? Where should we start implementing some of the areas where we decarbonize? Are our municipalities on the pulse? Let me put it that way when it comes to the transitioning of energy in South Africa.
So this is a really key question. And right now, the municipalities are not generators of power, majority of them. And those that do generate some power, it's a very small fraction of what they use. The vast majority of municipalities are distributors of power. And when your decarbonization efforts have to be primarily focused on the generation of power. So municipalities in their current operating paradigm cannot be the drivers of the decarbonization effort because they're not generators of power. And the little, as I said, that they do, it's a very small fraction for those that do have some of their own power generation, like the city of Joburg, city of Cape Town, etc. So that's the one thing. So what does government have to do to make the municipalities the drivers of decarbonization? They need to provide greater autonomy to the municipalities. They need to allow the municipalities to procure energy generation by themselves, within a certain framework, of course. And that policy reformation has not yet occurred. So while we have generally a very good energy policy, we are able to have private sector participation in the energy industry almost completely freely. That has not yet caught up to the municipalities. Municipalities are still stuck in a regime, 10, 15, 20 years ago, and don't yet have that autonomy. They can only, for example, procure energy generation for a period of 3 years before they need to have a multitude of other approvals. So this needs to change, empower and create more autonomy at the local government level, which means that they will then be able to make decisions suitable for their particular circumstances. And this will certainly drive decarbonization efforts. Let me give you one concrete example. There are some municipalities that we have in our country who suffer from having alien invasive species of plants. And they have a fairly reasonable energy usage, nothing too heavy. But if they were to implement biomass, for example, together with some very advanced heating and cooling technologies, they would be able to reduce their dependence on the grid. And this would increase also their decarbonization efforts, and it would also have the impact of removing some of these alien species that are invading certain of our provinces and are causing problems with our indigenous species of trees. So this is, something we call a virtuous cycle, where you'll be removing invasive species, you're creating biomass plants, you're creating a progress or process of decarbonization, and you're creating autonomy and also a greater degree of independence for that local municipality. That's just one example. We need to have other examples like this. Other municipalities may not have a biomass source, but they have a great wind source, for example. So we do need this liberalization of the municipal sector in this country. Now I understand, and just to your point, where the Auditor General has made these comments. So this liberalization has to come with some very strict controls in terms of anti-bribery, anti-corruption, those kinds of things, because that can run a little more rampant than it unfortunately already is if we liberalize even more.
All right, Mohamed Mahdi, CEO of Sinan Energy and an energy expert. Thank you so much for giving us your time and giving us insights. Always a pleasure chatting to you. And I think, it'll be interesting going ahead to see if South African municipalities are going to have that freedom to play a very, very important role when it comes to energy transition. But we're going to leave it there for now. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Really interesting discussion. One, Auditor General saying, well, people can't even handle their own money. You don't know where their money is coming from. And the president saying, well, the expectation is on municipalities. They are the ones that should be leading just energy transition in South Africa. So the expectation there, reality, the pits. We've come to the end of our show, but we're not leaving you just yet. We'll be leaving you with one of my favorite segments, hashtag Fired Up. And this was with Hafez Imran Chunar, a personal excellence mentor and Africa Muslims Agency CEO. And today's topic is becoming a giver. We're coming to the end of our show. Really appreciate you being with us for the last 2 hours. And I will be with you again for the Thursday edition of News and Views. But from myself, Salah and the rest of the team is goodbye.